Hey folks, I wanted to share a story with you. It happened to me when I went to McDonald's.
Oh, wait, I've heard this one before. Let me guess. It's either going to be, hey guys, I'm a Christian, and some time ago at a vaguely defined location, I met an atheist, and before he left said location, he had been saved. Or, hey guys, I'm a Christian, and you just would not believe what happened to me lately and how oppressed it made me feel. Also, bear with me here, guys. He tends to ramble a lot, and sometimes it takes him a while to finish a thought so that I can interject.
I shared this before, but it kind of ties into what I'm going to be talking about today. So I go to McDonald's, right? And the drive-thru was like really, like around the parking lot. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to go in. So I go in, and when I go in, there's these guys standing in, like, they've already ordered, so they're standing in the back of McDonald's kind of up against the wall. And so as soon as I go in there, they look at me like to see my reaction. And I'm like, what is going on? And I look, and they have these smirks on their face. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So then all of a sudden, on the other side of the counter McDonald's, I hear, $2.49? It sounds like a guy trying to pretend like he's a woman, like his voice. But when he's yelling, it kind of comes off like this, $2.49? So I'm like, and then I'm like, what the hell is that? And then those guys look at me to see my reaction. And then I hear it was basically this guy, let me just explain it. It was this guy dressed up like a woman that worked at McDonald's.
Yeah, I'd say that basically fits my second guess. I went to McDonald's the other day and I encountered somebody who I didn't understand. What has this country come to that I have to deal with people who aren't exactly like me just to order a hamburger? Surely the end times are upon us. Just because you lack the maturity to let people live in peace in totally harmless ways does not mean that they are wrong for doing so. Looking down on people that you do not understand does not make you enlightened, it makes you intolerant.
And then he says, this guy that's dressed up like a woman working at McDonald's, he goes, hey, look, I gotta go on my break. And so the other guys, I hear their conversation, and they said, you know what, man, it's a sign of the times. And then the other guy said, yeah, I just don't like where the times are taking us. And there is a gender identity crisis in America, and the reason why there's a gender identity crisis in America is because these people don't know that their identity is found within God.
Okay, I could go on for a while now to talk about why that argument isn't valid until you prove God, but we should presumably have plenty of time for that throughout the rest of this video, seeing as how it's called 11 Evidences for God. So I will just go ahead and keep it brief here in the interest of getting into the meat of this video. Just because you label something that you don't understand, like people with gender identities that don't match the sex that they were assigned at birth, as a crisis, does not make it one. You see it as a problem because you are either unwilling or unable to understand it, and the thought of other people thinking differently from you scares you. You started this story by saying that it tied into the central premise of your video, but having heard it and knowing what the title of your video is, I fail to see how that would make any sense.
So this ties into what we're going to talk about. We are made in God's image. That's what Scripture says.
Yes, according to the Bible, men and women are both made in God's image. It sounds to me like maybe if that's the case, God may have a pretty fluid relationship with gender as well.
Now, a lot of Christians have been using a technique that I use in debate, and it works great. It's honest, it's sincere, it's powerful, it's not a trick, but it really shows why Christianity is the only rational worldview out there.
Well, if all the things you say about this method are true, then I can say with certainty that it is unlike any Christian debate tactic that I have ever witnessed in the years that I have been engrossing myself in such debates. But I have a feeling this method is going to boil down to a logical fallacy. Just a hunch based on prior experience.
So, for example, if you click below this video, or go to www.shockawnow.net. Okay, look right below this video. SHOCKAWENOW.net. Shockawnow.net. And I use this in my debate with Steve Shives. You're going to see this below. And I'm going to show you how Cliff, he's a Christian pastor, he also uses it in his street preaching. And I'm going to show you why it is brilliant.
Oh, good. So you're going to convince me that God exists by using the same argument used by your friend the street preacher. Well, based on how much luck street preachers always have at effectively converting people to Christianity, I have no doubt that I will be forced to accept the truth of your message by the end of this video. Or at least be forced to say that I do in order to continue peacefully walking down the street.
So, when someone says to you, after you give them all this evidence for God's existence, if they say to you,
I'm sorry, did you just assume that all the necessary evidence for God, which does not exist because if it did we would already know about it, had already been delivered? I'll grant that I would find it somewhat comical if a video called 11 Evidences for God decided not to so much as even attempt to give any evidence for God, but if that ends up being the case, I can't imagine where this video is going from here.
well, I don't believe God, there's enough evidence, I gotta have evidence, I don't believe God exists. What you say is this, well, what evidence do you have that shows, for example, that you should be atheist? Because obviously evidence is important to you. What evidence do you have that shows that you're right, that you should live your life as an atheist or a Muslim, whatever they say? Where is that evidence?
Okay, so the big gotcha question that Christians are supposed to hit atheists with if they ask for concrete evidence of the affirmative claim of the Christian is to turn around and ask the atheist what evidence they have that God does not exist? I'm going to go out on a limb here, sir, because honestly I wouldn't be that surprised if I was wrong about you in this regard, and assume that you do not believe in unicorns. So if I did believe in unicorns, and you were to ask me what evidence I have that unicorns do in fact exist, you're saying that my best response would be to ask you what evidence you have that they do not exist? And with that being the case, what evidence would you give me in order to prove to me that unicorns do not exist? That you've never seen one? I've certainly never seen your God. The main problem with your question is that it ignores the simple fact that in a world like ours where nobody has directly observed anything magical, the baseline assumption should be, due to the lack of evidence for magic, that it would be dishonest to assert its existence as a fact. The burden of proof lies with the one making the extraordinary claim, not with the one whose views line up with what is directly observable in reality.
And it is pathetic, the type of responses you get. They will not have any evidence. So why, for example, does the atheist reject Christianity? Well, if you can say that stealing's okay, that adultery's okay, that fornication's okay, which is what atheists say.
You're right. I'm an atheist, and therefore I think that anything and everything is permissible simply because I do not recognize the divine edicts of your choice deity. Never mind the fact that it's quite simple to base your morals, as most people do, on whether certain actions lead to the victimization of other people or to a happier, healthier society for all. It would be totally unfounded for me to say that people shouldn't murder each other. I mean, what evidence do I have for that beyond the fact that I personally don't want to be murdered, that I can empathize with the fact that other people also do not want to be murdered, and therefore a society in which people do not murder each other is absolutely beneficial?
After all, to be an atheist, you're just evolved pond scum.
I doubt this guy understands any aspect of evolution enough to make it in any way central to his argument, so I'll go ahead and let it go for now, but if he makes any actual argument based on it, we will address it.
So if you're just evolved pond scum, why would there be things that are evil or good? So to be an atheist, there really is nothing that is evil and nothing that is good. Everything just is.
Actually, what you find when you base your morality in reality rather than in fiction, as most Christians do, is that not only do you still have ways to determine what is good and what is not, but you have logical consistency behind what you believe to be good and bad. You can back up your assertion that people shouldn't steal from each other by showing how it negatively impacts people. In contrast, when you base your morality on the Bible, the things that you consider to be sinful are remarkably inconsistent, including everything from murder to two men having consensual sex in the comfort of their own home. Not only do you consider things which produce no victim to be immoral, but by telling people, Well, being gay is just another sin. Everybody sins, so yours is no worse than somebody else's. As many Christians do, you're not only saying that victimless sins such as being gay are immoral, but you are setting them as being equivalent in their immorality to acts like rape and murder. It is you, sir, who has no consistent basis for your morality.
So this is a great way to defeat any atheist in debate. Ask them, what evidence do you have that shows that you're correct? Hold on a second. Look at this donkey. What are you doing? Cute little donkey.
Have I mentioned yet just how nervous it makes me to watch people do videos like this while they're driving, let alone on a damn motorcycle? Like, obviously if the video is uploaded, the person is fine, but still, it makes me nervous.
What evidence do you have that shows that being an atheist is rational?
Easy. There is no observable evidence for your God, therefore it is rational to not believe in such a thing when there is no evidence to support its existence.
And they won't have any. You know, I've been challenging atheists for over 7 years to answer one simple question: what proof and evidence can you provide that proves at last that atheism is accurate and correct? And the atheists don't have any evidence. So another argument and evidence for the existence of God is love.
Somebody really needs to explain to you the difference between evidence and arguments.
If there is no God, then the atheist is just predetermined by their, chemical reactions in their body. The atheist is predetermined to feel a certain way, so they really don't have choice.
No, probably not, and neither do you. Chemical signals in your brain can be measured to determine when you're going to act even before you yourself know it consciously. Free will is almost certainly an illusion to some significant extent. But trust me, it only gets worse for you in that regard if you're going from the Christian point of view. If your God is omniscient, knowing everything that has ever happened and everything that ever will happen, that would mean that necessarily no choice you ever make is an actual conscious choice. It can't be, because according to your own holy book, your God knows everything that every person is going to do for their entire life before they're even born. So either you act in the ways that you do simply because your path was predetermined by God, or your God is not omniscient. I highly doubt that you will accept the latter, so your only real option in this is that you have never once made a choice in your entire life.
When the atheist says they love their wife or their girlfriend, or the atheist woman says they love their husband, they really don't.
It is often difficult to consider in a society that is so built around relationships, but the love that you feel for specific other people is brought about by the same instincts and chemical reactions that compel animals to breed, and to protect their family in order to do so effectively. Despite the basal origin of these feelings, people actively seek out others who make their life feel like it is more worth living than it was when they were alone. We are a social species, and as such, people search for a quote-unquote mate for many other reasons beyond the compulsion to breed, but the science of love and attraction still mostly boils down to chemical reactions.
Because after all, how could evolved pond scum, look at all these donkeys, how could evolved pond scum have reason or logic?
You know, sometimes the mere fact that other members of our species of evolved pond scum use arguments like this makes me question how they could have logic or reasoning skills as well.
How could they know rational thinking? After all, they're just evolved pond scum.
Look, you and I both know that your evidences so far in this video have been lackluster at best, but there's no need to get so introspective about it. Just consider how many millions of years of evolution went into slowly developing your brain from your basal pond scummy form, and show that time a little respect by at least using some of the higher level thinking that your brain allows.
So, when an atheist says that they love, they really don't love, because after all, they're evolved pond scum. Now, when a Christian says they love, this really is love. Why? Because we are created, and I agree that the atheist is also created, in the image of God. It's just the atheist denies that.
So if your argument is that Christians can feel real love only because they're made in the image of God, but you also acknowledge that if the Bible is true, atheists, whether they deny it or not, are also made in the image of God, that would mean that atheists can feel real love just like Christians can, thus invalidating your previous argument. Meanwhile, if the only source from which you derive the idea that you are made in God's image, that being the Bible, were not true, then Christians would not be able to feel true love through this metric and would be, in the same way, equal to atheists. So what was your point again?
So love is really good evidence for the existence of God, because after all, God also is the epitome of love. Now,
what a cute, totally unproblematic thing you just threw in there at the end. Let me just tell you, bud, if your God is the epitome of love, then atheists are better off not having any of it regardless.
also design. 100% of the time, we see things that are designed have a creator.
That is correct. Things that are designed necessarily have a creator because that is included within the definition of being designed. Which is why I think it best we refrain from doing anything irrational, like asserting that just because humans exist and are complex, that they must have also been designed. Especially if you don't plan on offering any evidence to support that claim when you make it.
This vehicle in front of me is the product of intelligent design. It had a creator. This motorcycle, which is far less complex than you, the viewer, is a product of intelligent design. It has a creator. It is irrational to believe that you, a human, that is just a product of pond scum, is not designed, and all of this came about, the eyeball, for example, all this came about by sheer madness and chaos.
You see, that almost works as an argument until you consider the fact that one is mechanical and the other is biological. Now that may seem obvious, but it is very important, because living things can do the one important thing in this discussion that machines cannot. Living things can reproduce. New members of existing species are not created by somebody in a lab who can control every aspect of the process and make sure that the new individual is the exact same as the previous one, as is done with manufacturing. Rather, the process of reproduction has an aspect of chaos included within it, which allows for slight changes to occur between generations through mutation, and in sexual reproduction through the combination of genetic code from two unique individuals.
We've never seen an explosion of chaotic extremes create design. We've always seen explosions actually destroy.
Are you talking about the Big Bang now? Because that's normally what Christians are referring to in my experience when they refer to a big explosion. Unfortunately for you, all of the arguments from explosions don't create anything are being made by people who know so little about Big Bang cosmology that they think the Big Bang was an actual explosion.
I gotta turn around here. Alright, so now we're gonna get on at more advanced speed. Love is evidence of God. Figures when I turn around, they're going that way. Love is evidence for God, and design is evidence for God.
No, neither of those things are evidence for God. You have not proven either of those points, and I will not casually grant them to you.
This motorcycle is extremely complex, but you, the viewer, are more complex than this motorcycle. Let's pick up the speed here. So if this motorcycle cannot come out of a chaotic explosion, then certainly you can. You are the product of intelligent design. I cannot believe that out of pond scum.
Jesus Christ, what did Pond Scum do to you? It's not the Pond Scum's fault that people decided to name it Pond Scum. Would it have been nice to receive a name that sounds less disgusting? Of course, but Pond Scum didn't have that choice, but now it's just trying to make do with what it's got, and I'm sure it doesn't appreciate your derogatory comments about it.
That the eye was formed.
I could explain to you right now how the eye was formed over a gradual process, each iteration being a slight improvement over the previous, thus giving its recipients a survival advantage, but this video is already going to be far too long. So instead, I'll go ahead and link to a great video of Richard Dawkins explaining it instead. I definitely recommend giving it a watch.
And you know the weakest argument for atheism? They say, well, but it happened over billions and billions of years. That is such a weak argument. Time.
As humans who rarely live beyond a century, it can be incredibly difficult to imagine lengths of time which go beyond that. It's crazy to try and think on timescales of several hundred years, let alone billions. To put it into perspective for you, though I know it won't make a difference, life first evolved on Earth roughly 3.5 billion years ago, and humans did not begin to exist on this planet until roughly 7 million years ago. If you were to reincarnate every time you died and live to be 100 years old every single lifetime, it would take you 70,000 lifetimes to get from the dawn of man to the present day, and all of that is only roughly 1/500th the amount of time that life has existed on Earth. For context of what can change in an even more limited amount of time, all domesticated dog breeds that exist today can be traced back to the gray wolf. Humans domesticated and started to selectively breed the gray wolf no more than 17,000 years ago, and in just that time, which is 1/205,880th of the time that life has existed on Earth, we have turned gray wolves into Great Danes and Malteses.
I don't care how many times we get the parts of this motorcycle and put it in a box and explode it. I don't care how many times we do it, it's not going to come together over time. So it's just a weak argument. Atheism is madness, but definitely check out the video below where Cliff is a brilliant Christian. He's a pastor, and he goes to college universities and campuses, and everyone's slowing down because of this donkey. Look at these donkeys right here. So there's wild donkeys out here. Look at all of them. Put this on full screen. Oh, shoot, right here. Shoot. Look at that. And so we're not allowed in California to move these donkeys because they're like an endangered species. Look at this donkey up on the hill. I gotta be me. And then one more thing. We know that, did you hear that Einstein actually fudged his numbers because he didn't want the Big Bang to show that it had to be created? But Einstein literally, he had to go where the evidence is. We know that the Big Bang is the beginning of the universe.
I actually see this mistake made relatively frequently, where a religious person will point to something that a scientist said that was incorrect and expect that to prove wrong everything else that we know to be true. I believe that this likely stems from religion's tendency towards arguments from authority and their expectations that scientists and those who accept what they show to be true work the same way, which we do not.
And nothing can't create anything. If I put nothing in my gas tank here, hold on, I got a downshift. Another donkey or something? If I put nothing in my gas tank, I'm not going to get anywhere because nothing is the absence of anything. So something had to create the universe.
Now, I don't necessarily fault you for not grasping Big Bang cosmology. I barely have a decent hold on it, and I have looked into it a decent bit, but just because you misunderstand something does not mean that it works the way that you say it does. The nothing that is referred to in Big Bang cosmology is, at least as I understand it, a misnomer, as what it actually was all of the matter that would eventually go on to expand, not explode, to become the universe, was all condensed into a near infinitely small volume. Again, it's not something that is intuitive to wrap our minds around as a bunch of monkeys, but just because it seems unintuitive from the scale at which we view the universe does not mean that it is false.
Remember that song, "Nothing from nothing is nothing, you gotta have something." Excuse my singing voice. Nothing from nothing is nothing, you gotta have something. So 100% of the time we've seen things that are created, we've seen things that are designed, that are created. They have a creator.
Well, that was a clusterfuck of a sentence, but I don't think there was anything in there that I haven't addressed yet.
We've never seen things that are designed not have a creator. Love, design, and also the Big Bang all beg for a creator.
They beg to be understood. You have not answered their call.
I want to show you guys something here. If I could get this. See how this says remove before flight?
Oh my god, please stop messing with shit on your motorcycle while driving and recording. My anxiety can't take it.
I got this cool little keychain strap. Remove before flight.
Fuck, that made me uncomfortable. What good reason could you possibly have had for needing to show me that while driving?
One time I was in line and...
Are you kidding me? You're just gonna start telling an unrelated story? Why the fuck did you need to show me that ribbon while you're driving?
There was this, Cholo gang member guy, and I was in kind of towards the front of the line, and then there was a Cholo gang member guy in the middle of the line, and behind him was a guy in a suit. And the Cholo gang member guy had one of these straps, but it said Chicago Bulls on it, on his key tag. But he was swinging it around, the strap on his key tag, and it almost was hitting the guy behind him, and the guy behind him was an older guy, short guy. Oh my gosh, look, dead donkey. Oh, that's sad. So not to be insensitive to the dead donkey unless it's just lying there sunning itself. But the Mexican Cholo guy, gang member, was swinging this thing around, and I told him, okay, the wall just got 5 feet higher. No, I'm kidding.
We love casual racism.
So he was swinging the strap around, and the guy behind him was a really elderly guy, but he was bold, and he said, hey, sir, he goes, could you quit swinging that strap around? I've never been somewhere where people are so rude, where you're just swinging the strap around, it's going to hit me. And the Cholo got very angry and started cussing, and he said, hey, it's a effing free country, and he was yelling at this guy. And I felt sorry for the guy, so I said, and I knew this was probably going to cause problems and we were probably going to get in a fight, but the joke was so funny, I had to say it. And you ever want to tell a joke that's so funny, but it's probably going to get you in trouble, and you're going to have a fist fight? But I had to say it. So I said, hey, and it was a big crowded place, and I said, hey, you want to know why he's swinging the strap around? I said, because his mama never swung the strap around.
What? What is that supposed to mean? Surely it must mean something that would be generally understood, but I have absolutely no clue what that might be. If you have any idea, please let me know in the comments below.
And he came up in my face, and he said some weird stuff. He said, hey, don't talk about my effing parents that way. But we didn't get in a fight or anything. I just looked at him with my best Punisher look. Russo! Russo!
What the fuck has this video become?
No, so I looked at him, and I was surprised that we didn't fight. I thought we were going to fight, but it's good that we did. Anyways, if you ever go into McDonald's and you hear $2.49, maybe you can tell the guy, look, dude, you're made in the image of God. Don't be confused. So God bless you guys. Definitely go below this video to see Street Preacher and Pastor Cliff as he goes through 11 evidences for God. 11. I just went through 2. But click right below this video, or just remember, go to godwillreturn.com or shockonnow.net. I love you guys. God bless you. Have a great week.
I feel like I just phased into a whole new reality. What the hell was the end of this video? So apparently, the 11 evidences that are touted in the title of this video are actually found in a separate video made by somebody else entirely. Instead, what we got in this video was a bigoted rant about how the world is ending because people want to identify by a different gender than the one assigned to them at birth, several donkeys, 3 poor arguments for the existence of God, reckless driving, pond scum, a racist tirade, and a partridge in a pear tree. If you made it through this whole video, I applaud you. I'm honestly kind of surprised that I managed to make it this far myself. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like below and subscribe for future content. If you have any suggestions for things you'd like to see me cover in the future, please let me know in the comments section down below. Thank you all very much for watching, and as always, have a blessed day, fellow heathens.